Welcome to the CCFR Radio Podcast, your source for news, updates, and stories from the CCFR.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 197 of the CCFR Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Giltaca. Thanks for joining me again. In this episode, I've got a pre-recorded conversation with Tracy Wilson because she's out on a moose hunt, if you can imagine. So we're going to hear about that. We're also going to hear from Tracy about the amnesty being extended that protects gun owners from criminal liability for possessing these newly prohibited firearms. Newly, and when I say newly, I mean newly in the last half a decade. But that's been extended for a year. Also, a story about the Liberals getting dragged across the coals for promising, I think for the better part of a year, to hire 2,000 new RCMP and CBSA personnel. And turns out they haven't hired any of them. They're so concerned with public safety, they haven't followed through with any of their promises on public safety other than the disarmament agenda to only licensed gun owners, only the people that get that criminal record check every 24 hours. These are the only people that they are motivated to stomp down on, right? So it's all about keeping their promises, apparently. And I had mentioned that I would give you the math behind the claim, and I say the claim, I'm saying our claim, that the government intends to rip off basically everybody that participates in this confiscation scheme. It's really important that I just give you a little bit of detail. I will run through that as quickly as possible, but I want to put the numbers on screen so you know exactly where that information comes from, because accuracy is important. Certainly it is to us, right? So I'm going to be doing that. And also a special thank you to someone who has done so much for the CCFR and very rarely gets any credit. All that and more, CCFR Radio starts right now. Thank you so much to our great friends over at Vortex Canada. They continue to support the CCFR podcast and the CCFR. Can't say enough about them. Check out all their great products at vortexcanada.net. That's vortexcanada.net. Vortex, the force of optics. A huge thank you goes out to our great friends over at the Saskatchewan Rivers chapter of Safari Club International. They do a lot of great work over there, including supporting the CCFR and the CCFR Radio Podcast. Check out all their great work at saskriverssci.com. That's saskriverssci.com. 𝐂𝐂𝐿𝐷 has been a provider of trauma care training to military and police in Canada for nearly 2 decades. Now this emergency medical training is being made available to a wider audience through 𝐂𝐂𝐿D's online courses. Go to 𝐂𝐂𝐿DsAcademy.com and use promo code CCFR30 to get 30% off. That's 𝐂𝐂𝐿DsAcademy.com. All right, we're back. I've done about 10 takes of this because I'm trying to be as concise as I can and give you these numbers. And when I talk about the numbers, I'm talking specifically about what I mentioned in the intro and in the last episode. I want to put on screen the numbers that support our claim that basically, if everyone participated that owns one of these newly prohibited firearms participated in the confiscation program, that the government would rip them off after you tell the government what you have. Okay? That's a big claim, because if you think about the gravity of that, you'd have to think it through for a while. And I described it as diabolical, obviously. We talked about that in the last episode, but it's a really big deal. And I just had a 40-minute interview with a mainstream media outlet just before I started trying to record this stuff. And I explained it all. And even when I'm explaining, I'm like, I can't believe a government is actually doing this. Like, I can't believe it. It's really a sign of where we are. I don't mean to throw the dark cloud over everything, but it's monstrous. So if I'm going to make a claim like that, I want to make sure that I back it up. I don't need anybody to challenge me to back it up. I will do that in advance, because at the CCFR, the truth is the number one most important thing. And if you've been following us for any length of time, you know, to me personally, the truth is the most important thing. And not only from a moral perspective, right? Just from the perspective of this battle, because everything we're saying is true and correct. Our argument, if you just tell the truth, we win the argument. And that's the reason why you have a government that lies. It's just relentless lies, lie after lie. They lie about lying. They lie and tell you that other people are lying. The anti-gun groups do it. Other activist groups that are adjacent to these anti-gun groups and adjacent to the government, receive government funding, do it. And probably the greater part of the mainstream media in Canada do it too. Not everybody. There are a handful of good people in the mainstream media. I will tell you that. But overall, there's a reason why these people lie relentlessly. There's a reason why they are constantly emotionally manipulating their audiences. There's a reason why they are setting their hair on fire and they're on the fainting couch every chance they have, even for benign things. Why they're trying to set everyone else's hair on fire. Because they can't just sit and tell the truth and have their argument win the day. It's impossible. That's why they won't sit across the table from me, right? Not that I'm smart. I'm just a dum-dum from the mountains. You'd think that they would take every opportunity they could to sit across the table from me and make me look like a monkey in a flannel shirt. But you know what? They won't do it because all I need to do is tell the truth. Licensed gun owners are not a disproportionate risk to public safety. That's true. Gun buyback and this prohibition has no relationship with reducing multiple victim public shootings or firearm-related violence. That's just true. Even the police have turned against the government. Even the police have turned against them. Let me even take that back. Not even the police. The brass has turned against the government on this. Okay, like this is not even up for debate anymore. Everybody knows it. Then, of course, the government. I have to sit back and say, well, you apparently want to follow through with your promise, because an election promise, you're telling me that you're somebody that follows through with their promise, but you didn't hire any police officers. And apparently you're not going to pay for any of these guns like you promised for over half a decade, right? I just have to tell the truth and they have to continue to lie or they will lose, like literally in a 1-hour conversation, they would lose everything. You even heard the public safety minister basically blow himself up on leaked audio. He said the truth because he thought nobody was listening. Like this is not a debate anymore. It's a public relations war. That's it. Anyway, now let's get into these numbers. I'm sorry I've wasted 4 minutes telling you that, but I think that those kinds of things are important. All right. These are numbers that I got directly from the government in the technical briefing a few weeks ago. These are also numbers that I've gotten in my own little sort of research project that I talked about in the last episode. So there's some moving parts there. These are not verified numbers. They're anecdotal numbers from people who know, who have a good grasp of the information that I was looking for. I know it sounds a little weird, but that's the best way I can describe it. There's also a moving part in that we don't know if the government's budget contains all of the costs associated with the retail compensation program. I think based on what I heard, it does, but there was other information that was said during the technical briefing that said that it wasn't in the total budget. These are the three variables, okay? And actually the fourth variable, just keep this in mind. I'm asking you to keep some things in your brain while we talk about these numbers, but just do the best you can. The other variable is how many people own these newly prohibited firearms that are going to participate in the compensation program. We don't know what that number is. It's my opinion the government is trying to discourage people, like grossly discourage them from participating. But if everyone participates, those are the numbers that we're assuming for now, okay? This should all make sense in a minute. I've tried to explain this 10 different ways. I've been doing it for 90 minutes already. So here we go. On screen, I'm going to put these numbers up for you. All right. In the technical briefing, the government said that they are allocating $742 million and change. Okay. So these are round figures. There's another disclaimer for you. Round figures. $742 million. This includes all the administrative costs. I understand that it includes the retail program, but that is disputed. So we're not going to include it to make it look better for the government's side of this story. Okay. So just remember, this actually could include the $100 million they've spent so far. It could, but we don't know. So we're going to exclude it. So $742 million on the sheet here. The government said that they were going to be compensating for an average of $1,800 per firearm. And that's what prompted me to say, well, how many firearms are you thinking of buying? And here comes the next number. They said 152,000 in total. And that's where, if you guys remember the story, I'm like, what? There's like 90,000 ARs in Canada. And they said, oh, well, we actually have better numbers for you. There's 126,000. There's your next number. 126,000 restricted firearms. So all the ARs, which there's like 87,000, something like that, I can't remember, but around 90,000. And then all the other long guns that are restricted due to barrel length, overall length, whatever, okay, by name, what have you. So 126,000, and the government knows where they are. They're restricted, therefore registered. So they know they're getting those, give or take. So I'm like, okay, you have 152,000 that you know that you're buying. You have 126,000 that you know or you're going to get because they're registered. So that leaves 26,000 guns. 26,000 guns that represent every firearm in circulation over the last 100 years, let's say. Okay, whatever. I don't think there's any 100-year-old firearms on the prohibited list, but whatever, right? Yeah, for the last 100 years that were previously non-restricted that are now prohibited. So think about all the 50 cals, all the 22s, like how many models of semi-automatic 22s? Even if you think just the GSG-16 by itself, there's probably 20,000. That's just a guess. But I own 2 of those. I own 2 myself. I'm one guy, right? These things were sold in every, and I'm using this for a reason, every gun store in the country, including like Cabela's and Bass Pro, like big retailers. And they were cheap. They're plasticky, but they were cool. They were fun. They were affordable. They're cheap to shoot. I know 10 people that own one. 10 people in my immediate circle. How can there not be 20,000 at least? Maybe there's 50,000 of them. I couldn't get a hold of Blue Line to ask them. They were the distributor. They didn't want to talk to me for some reason. But yeah, I mean, there's got to be 20,000. Just the GSG-16s alone would make up 20,000 out of that 26,000 remaining. How can you think that 26,000 is going to cover it? So the next number, so 26,000, not a lot, right? So the next number we want to come up with is how many guns are in circulation in Canada? Well, if you remember from last week, we think that there's probably around 2 million, probably well over 2 million of these previously non-restricted, now prohibited long guns circulating in Canada. Probably well beyond, could be 3 million. I don't know, but I would even have a hard time saying 1.5. So we're going to go with 2 because that's a pretty solid number. Now, if everybody who owned these firearms participated in the buyback, everybody ran in there, told the government what they have, and there's 2 million firearms got put into that, well, 2 million plus 126,000 restricteds. But let's say that's included. Let's say it's less than 2 million. The government's going to pay for 1.3% of the guns, and nobody's going to find out until you've already told them what you have. 1.3%. Basically ripping everybody off. That's their intent. And they told me about it. Completely overt, completely upfront with these numbers. This is all they're going to pay for. So that promise for over half a decade that they're going to compensate you for their policy choices, and everybody knows this is not even a debate anymore. They do that to scare urban voters. This whole ban, this whole compensation thing, it's all BS. To scare urban voters to cling on to power despite what they've done to the country. So they're saying, oh, we're people that keep our promises. We're going to roll out this compensation program. We need to move forward. We keep our promises, except the promise to basically pay anybody. And you know that this is all BS. And I'll tell you why. Because if they were genuine, if this was really about getting these guns out of our communities, then they would pay for them. Right? They'd be like, okay, we know it's a lot of money. Canada, I know this is at a time when we can least afford it. We know that all this is going to go on a deficit and we're going to pay interest on this for 2 generations. But we made a promise. We're getting these guns out of our community. Gun owners, we are compensating you for them. Just tell us what you have and you'll get your money. Right? If they wanted to get the guns, that's what they would do. They would just follow through with their promise. But that's not what they're doing, is it? Right? And a lot of people would roll in there to be like, I could use that money. I've been out of work or whatever. And they would get a bunch of these guns. But you know what that would cost? It would cost $3.6 billion. $3.6 billion just in the guns themselves. Forget about the admin cost. The admin cost probably be about 1.5, if I had to guess, for that volume. right? There you go, $5 billion. But that wouldn't look so good. But they don't care about the guns. They just care about the politics. And that's why they're doing that. They're hoping that I come out and tell you all this, and everybody just says, not me. I'm going to hang on to this gun or these guns, and they're not getting my stuff. And the government goes, oh, thank God. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine two things? If we had to spend that entire budget and have that around our necks like a financial albatross, or we got a lot more guns put in the portal and we had to tell people to screw themselves, and then we're not paying for nothing. And their only choice is to hand it in for free, to export it to God knows where. I don't even know where am I going to export guns? Like to who? Right? Or to pay $400 to $700 each firearm to have them deactivated, and then give them the certification that they were deactivated out of my own pocket. Not only did I lose my 10, 20, 30 grand worth of firearms, I got to pay to have them all disabled. Why? Because the liberals want to play politics with my life and all of yours. Right? I don't know. I think it's pretty cut and dried, and I think I've covered it all. If they cared about public safety, they would pay for them like they promised. Apparently, they're people that keep their promises. Anyway, really important that you know those numbers. That's where they come from. So hopefully I got that right. I know it took a while, but it's really important. The last thing that I want to mention, I know it's taken a bit, but this is important too. The government wants to have this thing come in on budget. They want all of you just to screw off and to hold on to those guns. That's what it seems like to me. This is what it feels like. Or they would just pay for them, right? It's really that easy. It's that part of it is not complicated at all. If you want these guns, just pay for them like you promised. If you don't, tell people that you're going to rip them off by telling the gun lobby directly with the actual numbers in a meeting that was recorded with a slide deck, right? A PowerPoint. Tell them so that they tell gun owners and it gets around and nobody participates. But then what happens? Is there still, what is that? 1,980,000, right, of these newly prohibited firearms in homes across the country, all over the place. And they're going to leave them there, and they're just going to let them sit. And if you end up to be somebody like me that goes, this is wrong, and I'm going to talk about it, and God forbid, like me, some people start listening to what you have to say, then all they need to do is go to every gun store within 50 kilometers of your home or where you've lived over the past 10 years and ask them for the ledgers. Because if you remember, now there's a backdoor gun registry, right? Retailers have to keep make, model, serial number, PAL, address, phone number, and the city you were born in order to transfer a firearm to you. And then the government comes to you and says, hey, where's this, Black Creek Labs coyote that's now prohib? You bought it at this gun store. And you say, oh, I sold it before, I sold it. And they're like, where's the reference number that you did a transfer, right? Because you can't transfer a non-restricted firearm without getting a reference number. And you'd be like, maybe I didn't do it. Criminal offense. Not only have you committed a criminal offense by not getting the reference number, the license check, as it were, but now they suspect you of continuing to hold on to this firearm. And guess what? That's all they need to get a warrant for your home. And that is a gun call for someone who unlawfully, unauthorized possession of something that is in the eyes of the law, a machine gun. So that's not a general duty member call. That is ERT. So here comes the Bearcat and here comes the breacher. And, it's funny, I got lit up by the spin doctors for protection from guns, if you remember, by saying this exact thing. And then the media did a smear campaign on me personally for even bringing it up, that this could be a dangerous situation for gun owners, and that it could be more than just a handful of people. It could be a lot. If you only look at a small percentage of people that are unwilling to comply. If the variable to that is, who does the government decide they want to target now? Right? Are you causing problems? Are you, funding opposition during elections? Maybe we need to see if you still have one of these guns. And that will hang over the heads of Canadians forever, for a generation, until all of us have either died off of old age or just gone. Like, that's how this works. So for me, I have no choice but to comply. If I don't get paid, I don't get paid. I'm just out the thousands and thousands of dollars, or pay out of my pocket a couple of $1,000s to deactivate all my firearms because they're going to make an example of me, right? Like you're probably in a better position than I am. But for me, no, absolutely they would boot my door in, right? So I went from instructor for the RCMP firearms program, right? Getting a criminal record check every day, teaching people how to comply with the law, and then that's their duty as a licensed gun owner, to maybe even getting shot in a high-risk dynamic search warrant looking for prohibited firearms. And have I changed during this whole thing? Oh no, I haven't. But for some reason, the media took part, and it was like Carly Weeks of the Globe and Mail at the time. It was that clown, the health reporter, Andre, what's his face? Yeah, what a nut that guy was. I was on the front page of the Globe and Mail for saying something so outrageous. And of course, all the docs, they loved that. They all like, oh my God, look at what this guy said. What an extremist. And they dragged me right through the mud for saying that exact thing that I just said just now with exactly the same justification. But that's reality. So anyway, all right. I've said enough about this, but we are the gun lobby in Canada, and this is why we're concerned. And this is why we're going to continue to fight on every different level, because this is what's going on, man. This is the level of what's happening. So, as I said, I don't want to break into something else because I've been talking for 18 minutes. As I said, I was wondering, like, what is my role after the election? And it's like, oh man, there's a lot of representation that needs to be had for gun owners. There's a lot of information that needs to be circulated. There's a lot of work that needs to be done with police forces and friendly governments and elections, if there is one. Like, there's a lot of work to do. And we are desperately trying to do as much of it as we possibly can, because this is the level of stuff, right? I almost said another word, but this is the level of garbage that's happening right now, and it has to be opposed. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with is, if you want to do something about it, we have the press release or the media advisory that we put on the website with all of this math in it, right? Or you can just take down a few notes from, I think I might have mentioned this in the last podcast, right? Take down a few notes of what I've talked about, these numbers, where they came from, what that means to individual gun owners. Just take some notes and make an appointment to see your Liberal MP and go, what do you want? Do you want people having their doors kicked in? Like, this is not a stretch. This is not an exaggeration. I'm giving you the step-by-step how this happens. Do you want people getting ripped off? Do you want the government putting their thumb on people and crushing them by taking their property or making them liable to have it all deactivated for free, and they lose all their stuff, and then the government just laughs and says, yeah, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And staring them in the face. That's how I look at it, right? Because anything that goes wrong actually helps the government. They're like, see, these people are violent. Just put me in that role. I went from this guy over here to this guy over here. Did I change? No, everybody else changed. And they pulled a lot of what should be illegal, immoral, evil stuff in the interim. Talk to your Liberal MP, make an appointment to see them. Don't tear their ear off. Like I'm tearing yours off right now, right? Don't tear their ear off, but go, this is my concern. Get in and out of there in 15 minutes so they remember what you said rather than have their eyes glaze over. Like I said, what I'm doing to you right now, write letters, talk about it with other gun owners. Like this stuff is really, really important. Anyway, okay. Again, I've said enough. Hopefully I painted this picture as clearly as I possibly could. This is important stuff. Take a little bit of action. Don't just be mad about it. Go see your MP. Even the Conservatives, maybe even put a little bit of pressure on them. You guys need to talk about what the details of what the government is doing here, because it's evil. It transcends its property rights. It's just the behavior of government. It transcends the gun issue. So anyway, all right. That's it for now. I'm going to come back with an outro, and I've got a couple of other things to cover with you, including talking about someone that has done so much for the CCFR, rarely got any recognition at all. We're calling them Field Officer of the Month, even though they weren't specifically a field officer, I think, but just a really important shout out to a really important person. Anyway, all right, let's bring Tracy on. All right, via the internet, we have Tracy Wilson of the CCFR. Wilson!
There it is. How's it going, Giltaca?
Not bad. How are you?
Oh, I've had a lot of turkey lately, so I'm ready for to get some steps in.
All right. Are you feeling a little bit better than you were last time?
Yeah, a little bit. I actually feel considerably better, but I am still coughing, but mostly at night. So I think I'm on the mend finally.
Well, that's great to hear. That's good news.
Mhm.
Okay. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. It's going to be actually quite a bit of fun.
Mhm.
We are recording this way early. This is being recorded on October 15th, 2025. And you all aren't going to see it for another week. But the reason we're recording early is because you're going on a killer moose hunt. Not that the moose are killers. It's just a big moose hunt. And where you're hunting killer moose, land shark. And
Maybe.
and we're going to talk about that at the end. So we'll actually
Okay.
have some kind of lighthearted, fun stuff to talk about for a change. That'll be awesome, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I am super excited to go, and I'm glad that we could squeeze in an early recording. Hopefully, we don't miss too much action next week when I'm away, but I'm sure you got the reins.
All right. So we are going to start with something that did happen today, which is the Amnesty protecting gun owners from becoming criminals for unauthorized possession of prohibited firearms has finally been extended. The government has made the announcement, but we haven't seen the actual proof yet. But that's what's on the front burner.
Yeah, that's right. So on a Twitter post today and on other social media platforms, Public Safety Canada did put out that they are extending the amnesty until October 30th of 2026. Now, that's not legit until it's gazetted, which at the time of recording, it was not. However, that's just a formality. Now, there's some questions about, as you know, there's been 3 different gun bans, 2 different amnesties with different dates. Will that all be combined into this amnesty? That won't be clear until we see it in the Gazette and get to read, what is involved. But I would assume so. So if you think about it, from the time they banned those guns, starting back in May of 2020, until this most recent, I think, 4th extension of the amnesty, that's 6.5 years they've kicked this thing down the road. So I celebrate their, incompetence as usual. But yeah, that's the breaking news today.
Yeah. Well, they anything worth doing is worth doing wrong.
Well, guns so dangerous that you're forced to keep them for 6.5 years while we extend the amnesty out 4 times.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as you may have mentioned, because we talked about this before, so I have such a short memory that I'm like, oh, did we just mention it or not? But this does, I know that you mentioned that this encompass is, well, their position is, the government's position at least now is, this should encompass all of the different bans, because technically there was no second amnesty for the second ban, nor the third, nor any of the guns that were banned via variant status. I guess the government just thought, well, if this pops up, we'll annul any charges or whatever their idea was. But this is going to bring them all together, but it's not in the Gazette yet.
That's correct. So once it's gazetted, we'll be able to confirm that. But, I don't want to assume things, because we know what happens when you do that. But that is my understanding of how this is going to go. So, folks, you are protected out until October 30th of 2026. And take that for what that means.
Yeah, barring anything weird that happens in the interim.
Yes.
Okay. This is the first wave of fun content that we're gonna experience here. Hopefully no one experiences it differently, because apparently that's something that happens in Canada. But this is going to be a lot of fun. So it starts off with the comical 𝐥𝐞𝐠𝐚𝐥, Canada's current public safety minister, and he was getting grilled for not following through with a promise, I believe it was a campaign promise, to hire, and I've heard conflicting reports. Some people say 1,000 new RCMP, some people say 2,000, but apparently they haven't hired anybody yet.
Yeah, that's right. So it was a campaign promise. I believe the numbers were 1,000 RCMP and 1,000 CBSA. And that way they would strengthen the border. They'd be able to stop the flow of illegal guns, drugs, human trafficking, like all the things that are going on. And of course, it's funny because when the minister was grilled about why this hasn't happened, he's like, well, I don't do the hiring. Huh? It was like a Humpty Dumpty moment. He's just like, well, no, obviously, Gary, you're not doing the actual job interviews, but both the CBSA and the RCMP fall directly under your purview. The buck stops with you. You're the minister. It's your job to make sure these promises are kept. And that ties into the fact that the reason, even though the minister doesn't believe in the gun buyback confiscation program, and he knows it's not going to work, and don't ask me to explain the logic to you and all of those things, He said the reason why they were continuing with it was because it was an election promise. Well, so were these actual public safety measures of hiring 1,000 of each of these types of officers. So I don't know. I guess they're only concerned or prioritize um, election promises that target people who maybe wouldn't vote for them anyways, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, no kidding, right? We've been saying that for 11 years.
yeah,
But
that's right.
it is interesting. Like this brings up almost a whole topic in its own, because if you think about all the way back, and we're going to talk about all the different public safety ministers and a history
Mhm.
of public safety ministers in the Canadian government for the last 11 years. But if you think about this, like they've put a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of propaganda, a lot of like intellectual overhead into
Oh, yeah.
getting, banning guns and, and all the politics around that and paying lip service to everybody, like a lot of effort. But if you think about all of the policy and the funding announcements that have happened over the years, back in Goodale and Blair's
Mhm.
days, it was the $327 million for guns and gangs interdictions, and then the Safe Communities Fund, right? $250 million, whatever it was with Mendocino, and then
Yeah.
on and on and on, all these funding announcements and programs. And it's like, wow, we're spending billions on these. Oh, don't worry, we've got 100 million for guns and gangs, right? Like, but you never heard one single report, and I mean one single report, at least that I can ever remember, and you and I do this for a living, where they've actually rolled anything out or had
No.
any story of success, any anecdote of success from all of that, everything that they've said for the past over a decade, right? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Well, I remember back in the Goodale days when they first made that 327 million, funding announcement. That doesn't actually mean that money has been spent. That just means they're announcing that they're going to. And we did an ATIP on that, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe it was somewhere around $90 million had been sent to various organizations out of that. And that was, when the next election rolled around in 2019, Goodale lost his seat, but they were still using that, like re-announcing that same announcement over and over, although it had never happened. So yeah, I mean, their record on public safety, like the data is in, right? We've had almost 11 years now to review their policies and how they've been affecting public safety. And the results are in. It's been a terrible, bloody disaster, right? It's cost Canadian lives. It's at an epidemic point where public safety is now one of the most important issues to Canadians, to citizens. This never was a thing. Growing up, this was never a thing. I mean, sure, there's always been some instances of violence, but overall, Canada was a very safe country, and it's not right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just interesting where their priorities are,
Yeah. Well, and that's, I'm not going to say it feeds conspiracy theory, but it all it does is reinforce the contention of so many Canadians. It's like they don't care about public safety. Like it's not
No.
even a thing for them. Like it's not even on the radar screen for them. Doesn't register because
No.
they're sitting there going like, oh, we're not hiring these CBSA agents. We're not strengthening the border. They rented a Black Hawk for some exorbitant amount of money for whatever, right? 3 months to pacify Trump and to pacify the elbows up crowd, like they're doing something. They didn't hire any of the RCMP, but they're pushing forward with the gun buyback.
Yeah.
It's not a theory anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
No.
this is who they are. This is what they're doing. So really important to make that distinction.
And I think the appointment of Gary Anandasangari as the Minister of Public Safety in itself is sort of a statement to Canadians that the public safety file itself isn't a priority for this government. They don't care if you're being victimized, if homes are being broken into, your cars are being stolen, repeat violent offenders are out, wreaking havoc on the streets. They don't care. They literally took, a Humpty Dumpty backbencher who doesn't have a clue about his file, didn't know anything about it, even, months into the job, um, freely admitted, to a tenant that this thing isn't going to do anything. They just got to do it. Don't worry. We won't be so hard on you guys later.
Votes in Quebec.
And
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then when it comes to actually doing his job and getting some of those real things put in place, like they're hiring those workers, it's just, I don't know, not my job. I don't do the hiring. Like, just that, if that isn't a clear signal to Canadians how little your safety matters to these people, then I don't know what is.
So anyway, why don't we get into this with a I don't know about brief, but a summarized history of public safety ministers in Canada over the last 11 years.
Well, we're going to have to reach back to our humble beginnings where we had sleepy old Uncle Ralph Goodale. And of course, he was the public safety minister for quite some time. During the first Trudeau term in 2015, he was basically Trudeau's right-hand man. You know, he was a very senior, kind of semi-stately type person, very experienced politician. And we went after him. You'll remember in the 2019 election, the idea was to drive the Liberal failure bus out to go and visit him. But looking back on it now, it's almost like we should be careful what we ask for, because he was the last minister that actually consulted with stakeholders. You know, I could request a meeting with public safety officials and get in there and have a meeting. We did it all the time. He since, you know, in 2019, he lost his seat. But, you know, you never really go away. He got a golden handshake and he's off to be the High Commissioner for Canada in the UK. So, yeah, that's kind of where we started with Goodale.
So I had to do an edit there because you stopped talking thinking I was going to say something. And I really didn't have much to say about Ralph Goodale.
No, there isn't a lot to say. I mean, for all his faults, he was still better than every single one that came after him. But yeah.
Well, he was sleepy, but he was appealing because he, you know, it's one thing I always thought about Ralph Goodale is he made a good politician because he had this kind of AM radio sportscaster voice, and he always came across as very serious and whatnot. And that was like, that's almost old Canadian politics, right? When keeping up appearances mattered and having the right person to deliver the message, even if the message was total garbage, like it was with gun control and the Liberals, right? But after that, the mask sort of slipped off with the next guy.
Yeah. Well, the next guy was Bill Blair, former Toronto police chief. We call him, sometimes I lovingly call him Bootstrap Billy. But he was famous for committing some of the worst human atrocities in the country at the G20. In fact, it was dubbed the most massive compromise of civil liberties in Canadian history. And of course, we kind of made him infamous in our 2019 election video when you and I actually got to sit down with him in his office and you caught him red-faced and lying flat to your face.
Yeah. Well, I could now on the other hand, with William Sterling Blair, I could talk about him all day long.
Yes.
One of the most dangerous people, I think, to ever hold office in Canada. And I'm not, I know that sounds like some crazy statement, but I'm not even kidding. You sit across a table from this guy and it's almost, it's supernatural. You're just like, holy smokes, man. If this guy had the controls you know what I mean? The leash taken off of him, that guy is capable of literally anything. I mean, if you remember his rhetoric, like he just spewed out lies. He did this, if you remember, and we didn't rehearse this, right? But it's an interesting walk down memory lane. If you remember when we did the election brochure project, and our volunteers did, you know, spread these election brochures in his riding, and he did this video and he's just shaking and his voice is all over the place and he's shaking this thing. He says, this is full of lies and propaganda. Like it was exactly the opposite. They were all completely fact check, demonstrably true things written in a way that anyone could read it. And he's like, I'm telling you, that guy's crazy.
He was furious.
And then the time where he's like, not everyone in the gun lobby, in the Canadian gun lobby is an extremist, but every extremist is in the gun lobby.
You know, we're seeing ideologically motivated violent extremists who are using online platforms to propagate and advocate for hatred and violence against women, against religious minorities, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, and hateful speech, and advocating violence. And we can use these red flag laws because I will tell you, many of those extremists, not every person who's in the gun lobby is an extremist, but everybody in the extremist is in the gun lobby.
Yeah.
And then that Varani guy, that little, he reminds me of the, what is it? The meerkat in Lion King. I'm not even kidding. He's sitting
Now
there.
you
It's like,
ruined it
yeah,
for
oh
me.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, every extremist in Canada is in the gun lobby.
Yeah, what a ridiculous thing to say.
Like-
Like my family saw that.
Oh,
you know?
these people were him and the people that surrounded him were completely unhinged. And Bill Blair today is just as unhinged as he was back then. So that was a
Yeah.
really dark time in public safety.
It was. It's actually really nice to see him backbenched. Of course, there's lots of rumors swirling around that he's likely to step down and be given some, patronage appointment, sort of like Uncle Ralph got, ship him off somewhere else to be some sort of diplomat. And I think that would be great. But it is nice to see Carney just backbench him like that.
Yeah.
But of course, immediately following Billy was Marco Mendicino, our favorite. He famously claimed that the long gun registry was responsible for solving who committed the shooting at Polytechnique School. Of
Led
course,
to his
one of
arrest.
Canada's darkest days.
Yeah.
What's that?
Led to the arrest of Mark Lepine.
Yeah, that's right.
Camel
He's
Garvey.
trying to credit that, which couldn't be any further from the truth. And it just showed these people will say anything, do anything. Doesn't have to be true. It can be totally humiliating and embarrassing. It doesn't matter, whatever they got to say. And speaking of totally embarrassing, he also famously trotted out at a press conference his good friend 22 gauge Goody Hutchins. And you'll remember that she said, none of her guns were banned because she's a real hunter with real hunting guns. And she's got her 22 gauge that she uses for moose, ptarmigan, and black bear. And she also referred to a firearms license as an FAC, something that was abolished back in 1995. So these are your experts. These are your distinguished politicians who are running this country, just absolute clown show buffoonery. It's like a cartoon with a bunch of children on it, just a bunch of bumbling dum-dums. So,
Well,
yeah.
It's Hutchins.
Yeah. Goody Hutchins.
Yeah. The thing that outraged me about her, not so much her propaganda. We were used to that with Marco Mendicino. But when she did that whole FAC thing, if you remember, I'm going to play the clip as soon as I'm finished talking, and I'll just squeeze it in there. But when it was like people were asking questions, or she was trying to make a point, and then she was like, okay, hold on, everybody. Class is in session. I am the expert from the Liberal government, and I'm going to tell you. It was the confidence. Anyone here?
Yeah.
Have an FAC, Firearms Acquisition Certificate?
Sorry, Mr. Hutchins wanted to
Any of you here firearms owners? Do any of you here have an FAC, a Firearm Acquisition Certificate? So here's a fact you need to know. There are still 19,000 firearms available for hunters and sport shooters and Indigenous hunters. So there's lots of firearms still available in Canada legally. If you want to shoot ducks, moose, deer, partridge, ptarmigan, there are plenty of legal firearms available for hunters. And I encourage you all. It's a wonderful sport, so take it up and you'll learn something about it.
Just, that tone of, let me teach you. I'm going to tell you. And then to literally get everything wrong was, and you're right, with such confidence, that's incredible, like just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Then our next two guys after that were basically just, I think after all that, clownery, I think they were looking for somebody just to sort of be a placeholder, maybe an adult in the room. Because right after that, we had David McGuinty, and he was the son of former Ontario Premier Dalton McGuinty, longtime Liberal family, Ottawa area MP. He's actually an environmental lawyer, so no real experience with the public safety file, or now he's actually the Minister of National Defense. But he famously said to Conservative MPs in the House, he said, Conservative MPs were shilling for the oil and gas industry and did not belong in the national legislature, and they should just go back to Alberta. And that total inflammatory statement. This was during the Harper era. And he was the natural resources critic. He literally resigned from that position the next day because of these inflammatory statements. And now he went on to become public safety minister under Trudeau.
Yeah, why
and
not?
then now, and now he's a minister of national defense. So feeling upwards,
Of course, right?
Yeah.
But when you have someone that will take marching orders, no matter how immoral, these are handy people to have, right? That's why they stay in politics for so long.
Yeah.
And the people that fall out of politics, like Bootstrap Billy, right? But people that fall out of politics, the buffoons, like Marco Mendocino, they have a limited shelf life, right? And then they get turfed because they're just there to take the heat, and then
they're disposable.
Exactly, tossed in the trash afterwards.
Yeah.
But who, may I ask, is next on the list?
Well, next we've got Dominic LeBlanc. And of course, he is 100% the adult in the room. I mean, he's not my favorite guy, that's for sure. But he's normally got a lot of high profile international type roles. And when he was given the public safety file, they just actually added it on to his already existing portfolios. So it showed that he wasn't really going to do anything with that file. They had to stick it with somebody that wasn't going to be a complete, clown show and embarrassment, just to, cool things off on public safety. So it sat with him for a very short period of time. He didn't actually really do anything. I think he had a couple of talking points that he did. And other than that, he was literally just a placeholder. And then, of course, they moved on to our good friend Gary and Andes Sangarine.
Yeah. Well, this ought to be good. Go ahead.
Well, Gary was a backbencher, and of course, he was probably totally happy to get this appointment, right? Like, wow, what a big thing to be appointed the Minister of Public Safety. It's a very high profile purview. Normally, it used to be. However, he's struggled and been in battle the entire time. First, he had to recuse himself from talking about anything to do with the Tamil Tigers, which because he's got a connection through his family. I believe his father was one of the founders. So imagine being the Minister of Public Safety, but you have to recuse yourself from parts of your portfolio because your family has ties to terrorist organizations. So that's a little sketchy. And then, of course, we all know now the famous audio clip that I snuck out there a couple of weeks back, where the minister admitted very freely that this isn't a matter of public safety. They're doing it to appease Quebec. Just accept it and we'll stop picking on you. If you get arrested, don't worry, I'll pay your bail. You're going to get ripped off, but I will pay the difference. This just continued. And then, of course, the buffoonery in committee last week. And I wanted to talk about that committee meeting. The name of it was the responsibilities and mandate of the public safety minister. Excuse me, which is fitting because he actually doesn't know what those are, right? Hiring RCMP and CBSA, that's not my job. Attacking legal gun owners, oh yeah, I have to continue doing that because we promised it during the election. At the same time, we made all those other promises. So I am surprised they're letting Gary hang on, I think because we all know he's likely to get fired. And Carney probably just wants to give him that little bit of ability to let some space and time grow between his, obvious bumbling of the files and him getting fired. But I would expect to see him be moved out of this portfolio in pretty short order. So that is your history. 6 public safety ministers.
What a mess.
Racked them up and knocked them down.
Yeah.
So
what a mess.
Yep. Total mess.
So a couple of things. Number one, if you look at public safety or you look at firearm-related violence or violence in general, has gone through the roof over that same period. No matter which one of these clowns they put in that seat. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want, and I don't want to give LeBlanc a pass either. Right. Like he pushed the whole agenda forward. He appeared in committee. He sat next to Talal Dakelbab, the guy from public safety. As Talal said, well, with our regulation, our change in regulation around handguns, within about 50 years, we think everybody will be dead and all those handguns confiscated. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's exactly what he meant.
That's what it boiled down to.
That's right. And I've showed that clip a number of times, so I'm not going to do it again. But and of course, LeBlanc just like, yep, sounds good, man, whatever. As long as I keep padding that pension and fly around in business class, I'm okay with all of this, right? So
yeah,
I don't know.
And he'll remain a minister all the way through. And then even when he's ready to retire, if he was to lose, his seat in an upcoming election, he would 100% be given some kind of patronage appointment if the Liberals win again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like that guy's set for life.
He'll be worth a pile of money when he's done, and he will have flown all around the world at the expense of working people for his entire career. I don't doubt that in the least. But
Yes.
anyway, yeah, we end up with Gary and Sangry at the end. It's
Oh, boy.
okay. All right. We didn't discuss this before, but look at your notes and tell me the adjectives that you had come up with to describe some of these
Okay,
people.
so yeah, I put little notes underneath each minister, and under Gary, well, I mean, I it's easy to talk about him because those things just recently happened. But all my notes say is dense, Humpty Dumpty, half-wit, bumbling, cartoonish.
I don't know. I'm at a loss. Anyway. Okay.
Why say anything more?
Yes, I think
that says it all.
I think we've said enough about
Yeah.
all these people. It's been just an unbelievable adventure. And am very curious how all this is going to end, but whatever. I don't know. We're doing everything we can, but man, that's what we've got to work with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll keep blowing great big 50 cal size holes in their ship. And that's what I've been telling everybody lately. That's how I like to say it. So we'll keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it ain't over till it's over, man.
That's right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Enough of that. Now we've been talking for about 30 minutes and I think I found it quite entertaining, but let's move on to something a little bit more wholesome.
Okay.
As mentioned, we had to record earlier than we'd like. In fact, a week early because you're going on a moose hunt. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's right. This is a really cool opportunity. And excuse me, as you know, I haven't been hunting in years. I think just between the job and, we're always busy and there's all elections seem to always be in the fall. And it's just been a lot going on. And I saw this opportunity posted on Facebook by the Canadian Sportswomen's Society. And of course, we're big supporters of them. They're great girls. They do a ton of good work. And she had a last minute cancellation and an open spot for this moose hunt. Now it's up in northern Ontario, past about an hour and a half past Timmins. So this is like, with stops, like a 10-hour drive for me, right? Up at Horwood Lake Lodge. It looks beautiful. And this is going to be an opportunity to be out on this wild expedition. There's 8 girls going. We all know Lori from the Canadian Sportswomen's Society, Lori-Ann Horse, but we don't know each other. So I just think it's going to be the coolest thing because we all have similar interests. We're obviously interested in hunting and fishing. So we're going to, come from all corners of the province or the country, come up there. And we're just in for a wild time. We've got moose tags. We've got bear tags, wolf tags. We're going to be shooting grouse. We're going to be fishing out on a boat. So it's just going to be 8 days of action, hopefully lots of shooting because lots of shooting is a good sign when you're hunting. And make some memories that are going to last a lifetime. And I'm going to try and capture that as best as I can and maybe get in on an episode of your other TV show. That's kind of my goal. So I was out to the range on the Thanksgiving long weekend because we both suffer from this. I find we work so hard trying to promote and preserve the shooting sports that I don't actually get to participate in them. So I said to Colin, let's go shoot that gun. And I need to make sure I'm dialed in. I was shooting bullseyes all day long, so we're good to go. But I am really excited to go. I haven't been out on a hunt in a long time, and this promises to be a true adventure. So I'm so excited. I can't wait to go. I leave tomorrow.
Right on. So it's like a week
Yeah.
long, right?
Yeah, it's like 8 days. So I'm
Crazy.
going to be a wimp and cut my drive over 2 days just because I find as I'm getting older, it's tough to jump in the car and drive for 11 hours. I used to be able to do it, but I'm getting there. So yeah, I'm going to take a leisurely day and a half to get up there. And I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know these girls. They don't know me. We don't know each other, but we will by the end. So hopefully I'm going to meet a whole bunch of new sisters and we're going to shoot a whole bunch of stuff. So
That's awesome. Well, as you said, you're going to try to capture as much of it as you possibly can because you're going to be in an episode of season 2 of my other show, my hunting show called My Best Hunt on Wild TV, and which will be an interesting thing for you and I to do, right? Because I don't talk about the CCFR in the other show because that's not what it's about.
Right.
Obviously, the CCFR is one of the sponsors. If you've seen that show, which is great because the show went really well. Like the ratings are really good, which is awesome. But I don't talk about what I am outside of the show. But that one, I guess we're going to talk about it. And
I guess we will.
And the hunt that you're going on is such a multifaceted hunt. It's not like a dude, because a lot of my guests, right, is like a dude that, solo hunts and went on this elk hunt and there was this big adventure or whatever, right? But this is going to be, this is going to be crazy. You got a bunch of women out there. You got tags for basically anything that moves, so to speak.
Yeah.
So there's going to be opportunity somewhere.
It's getting shot.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, I'm
excited. And I want to give a huge shout out. Like, we've got a CCFR women's program and we're pretty closely aligned with the Canadian Sports Women's Society. But, we do get to do ladies range days and all kinds of fun stuff. And I wish I could do more, but we can only do what we can do. But they do a wonderful job of introducing women to hunting and fishing. And I feel kind of honored that I get to go on this expedition with all these wild girls and, just see what we can come up with. So I'm so excited and really happy for the opportunity. So
it's going to be good because we'll draw some attention to their organization as well, not only through our social media platform at the CCFR, but mine with the other show. So that'll be great.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be really good for them, really good for us. And maybe we'll get some fun behind the scenes antics of all the wild ladies. One little quick note, I did do a goose hunt years ago with these girls and I'll never forget it. We were out there sitting on our buckets in the rows of corn, and it's very different from big game hunting. It's very social. You can kind of be loud until the geese are coming in. So in between, flocks of geese, they were dancing in the corn aisles and filming TikTok videos. Like, it was so wild and fun and laughing and just having the time of our lives. So I can only imagine what this is going to be like. Probably a little quieter because I don't want to scare the moose away. But yeah, we're just going to go up there and just have a blast and hopefully fill our trucks to come home with all kinds of good organic meat. So looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure everyone that's watching this is wishing you the best of luck. And we will get the full report when you get back.
Okay. That's we'll stay tuned.
Yeah. Well, as usual, thanks for the update. And I guess we'll chat with you next time.
Okay. We'll see you then.
All right. That's going to do it for episode 197 of the CCFR radio podcast. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Make sure that you share the podcast and talk to your other gun owners and get everyone involved that you possibly can. One of the things that you want to get involved in is talking to your Liberal MPs, maybe even Conservatives too, but talk to Liberal MPs. And I talked about that already in the monologue, right? In the intro. I don't want to rehash all that stuff anyway. But if you want to do something other than listening to podcasts or being a member of the CCFR or donating or whatever, or volunteering at your gun, if you want to do something, do some activism, that's really something you can do. And I would highly encourage you to do that. Send letters to the mainstream media. Say, how come you're not talking about this story, right? Like, I went through all this during the monologue, so I'm not going to do it again. But I just want to remind you that you have the power to just spend an hour or two, twice a month and just write a couple letters or make some phone calls or send a couple of emails. Like, all that stuff helps. And if a big group of people are doing it, it's this constant fire hosing of the government or the media or MPs or whatever, right? And they're just like, man, these gun owners, like, it must be a real problem. Maybe I should pay attention to this. Maybe I should pay attention to this or I won't get reelected. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. Every other gun owner could really use the help, would appreciate the help. All right. Now, I just have I only have really one thing to share with you before I let you go, but it's important. It's a little story about a person surrounded by the CCFR Field Officer of the Month for September 2025. And that is our incredibly great friend, Reese Yearwood. Now, Reese has been with the CCFR since the beginning. For 10 years, Reese has been tirelessly volunteering for the CCFR and basically got no recognition for it, as most volunteers do, because unless you're out front, like for me, I get all this adoration and I get all the hate too, but that's because I'm the visible part. But I'm not the reason the CCFR is here today. I'm not the only reason that we are able to do the things that we've done, the things that are unprecedented that have happened for gun owners since the CCFR has been around, right? Like the last election is an example. it's people like 𝐟𝐮, and I'll tell you why. It's not just me trying to heap praise on people for helping us. Like, I'll tell you definitively why. So we were born on Facebook. We were born in a closed Facebook group, the CCFR group, okay? And that's where the CCFR started. That's where we built our following. That's where we were originally funded, was from all the people in that group. That's how we grew our organization and got out of that group into the mainstream and became the largest, most sophisticated gun lobby group in the history of the country. It all started in that Facebook group. And Facebook is unlike any other social media platform. They force people to do their work for them. It's the only social media platform in the world that makes anyone that has a group administrate, like moderate individual users, or the group gets destroyed, gets deleted. Oh yeah, man, they got a real racket going on there, right? Because they know the people that are truly just Facebook only really stick to that platform. I've moved away from it personally, but I was all Facebook and only Facebook for a long time myself, right? When we started the CCFR. So basically, when Facebook has a user and they get accepted into a group and they start misbehaving in that group, breaking community guidelines, they get suspended and the group can get a strike. And it's like 3 strikes, we're deleting your group. And we've seen other groups, Facebook groups, get deleted. Like we have 68,000 people, I think is the last number, I think, in that group. Like we've had that for a decade and it could be gone like this if we don't get people to moderate it. And 𝐟𝐼 and a handful of other people have been running that moderation group for a decade. If it weren't for 𝐟𝐼 and a couple other people, primarily, we could have lost that group, I don't know, a year or 2 in. And who knows where the CCFR would be? Might not even be what it is today because of that. So that's the level of contribution that people like 𝐟𝐼 make to the CCFR. Like it's really, I don't have the words to describe how important that is, like critically important. So anyway, 𝐟𝐼 has taken a step back because he's volunteered for free for a decade, man. So anyway, we want to thank 𝐟𝐼 for everything that he's done for us. Words can't describe how much gratitude we have for his help. So anyway, as you know, being Field Officer of the Month, you get a year's free subscription from Canadian Access to Firearms, graciously donated every month by another fantastic individual, Donovan Duas, over there at CATF. You also get a $100 promo code, right? Our favorite things here at the CCFR, promo codes, to our online store, and you get mentioned here in the podcast and our nationally broadcast television show in its 5th season, CCFR Radio on the Air. So again, thanks, 𝐟𝐼, for all your work. Really appreciate it. Couldn't have done it without you. I don't think I have anything else on my list for now. I probably forgot something. Someone will tell me that I forgot something. But thanks to everyone for watching. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.
This is another episode of the CCFR Radio Podcast. Remember, if you don't stand up for your own ability to own and use firearms, who will? Join the CCFR or donate right now at www.firearmrights.ca.